Pandora's hairdressing salon in Hunter Street is certainly on a winning streak. 21-year-old Gillian Frost has just completed her 4-year apprenticeship and entered in the selections for the World Cup squad without wild expectations. She came out in front in the New South Wales selections and then last week in Melbourne continued her climb to the top by becoming one of 3 seniors to make the World Cup team destined for Germany next October. From here it won't be easy sailing. Winning means hours of practice.
Training probably every week, and then get a month before the competitions every night, and then to Germany in October next year.
But Gillian won't be training on her own. 2 Salon juniors, 18-year-old Susanna Vangerlove and 18-year-old Chris Bashford, have been selected for the Junior World Cup team. Salon owner Julie Farraher, who is herself a veteran World Cup competitor, has been selected as the assistant coach. She's still recovering from the shock of getting 3 of her girls into the competition.
I hope that one would, but to get 3 in, it's amazing.
Superannuation is a sensitive issue and people want to make certain that their hard-earned contributions are put to work correctly. Today, state public servants from a cross-section of occupations met at the Newcastle TAFE. The issue at stake was a state super scheme. This fund, which was compulsory for all state public servants to join, closed in 1985. Since then, a new fund, the State Public Service Scheme, has been established and joining is optional. Many contributors are outraged at plans to amalgamate the old state fund with newer funds. They say their money should not be used to prop up less successful funds.
The new state public service superannuation scheme that the government started was made voluntary, and it's had a less than a 50% response. And also the police superannuation fund is reported to have a 2.5 billion liability. Now, our fund, we don't want to be loaded with this situation. I mean, many of our contributors have paid into it over 30 and 40 years, and they are now entitled to be looking for benefits, seeing the fund is in such a liquid state.
The Newcastle Lifesaving Club had been without a president for some months, basically because it's quite a lot of work and no one had the time and energy to devote to the job. 29-year-old Lynn Milne, a Maryland's housewife and mother of 2, only did her bronze medallion last year. And people laughed when she jokingly floated the idea 12 months ago that she would be the next president. However, she was nominated and now finds herself in the job. Although there was no opposition at the time, as news filters through, some hackles are starting to rise.
I expected a lot of hands to go up against me, but not too many did. Oh, actually, I don't think there was any that sort of went up against me, so it's mainly been the reaction of the rest of the club once the word got out that I had been voted in president. I've had a lot of congratulations from it, and also word has filtered back to me that sort of a few of the older members weren't too happy about it.
Lynn is not worried about any backlash from the old guard. She says it's essential that women be able to play a more prominent role in Australian lifesaving.
Police already survey 3 sections of the Pacific Highway by air at Munmurra, Catherine Hill Bay and Raymond Terrace. Now attention is turning to the New England Highway. By November, 5 new areas will be watched. The new sections will include 4-kilometre stretches between Camberwell and Ravensworth and between Musselbrook and Liddell. 5-kilometre sections will also be surveyed between Belford and Whittingham and Parkville and Wingen. A 5-kilometre stretch will also be watched at Chiranville between Aberdeen and Scone.
The particular areas in question, which range from Maitland through to Wingen, which is north of Scone, have been selected because of the accident history that exists in those particular areas, and it has been proven that, or it has shown, that in the places where grids are currently in existence, that the accident rate has dropped.
In some areas, he says, there's been an 11.5% reduction in the number of accidents. In a 2-month period on the Pacific Highway in the Newcastle area, surveillance aircraft made 16 visits and booked 82 motorists. But police claim the main aim is to cut the road toll.
The college says it's been contemplating the name change for more than 12 months and approached the State Minister for Education, Rod Cavalier, in July this year with the proposal. The change was gazetted today, and the Hunter Institute of Higher Education will come into being on January 1st, 1988. The implementation of the Hunter Institute will coincide with the introduction of a new academic structure comprising the School of Administration and Technology, Education and Humanities, Health and Visual and Performing Arts. The present number of 23 academic departments will be reduced to 14, while the internal structure of courses is also being changed under the plan.
The train is on an 81-day tour of regional areas throughout the state. The 4 carriages are packed with the latest information on new technology and government assistance packages to help small business people. Seminar facilities are also available. Established operators can consider new techniques for improving their businesses. The government also hopes to put new business people on the right track. While the train drew good crowds in Newcastle today, it's not without its critics. The state opposition says the initiative is off the rails and a waste of taxpayers' money, but the department says it will pay for itself.
We've got something like 30-odd sponsors with displays on the train. They are paying for the space on the train, so already the government has redeemed most of what they've outlaid in the first instance. Then in turn, those people with displays and the major companies with displays on the train are gaining a lot of sales as the train goes around the state. So they in turn are getting their money back.
The train can be inspected at the siding near the harbour foreshore tomorrow and on Monday. It will be in Maitland on Tuesday and Wednesday and at Gosford on Thursday and Friday.
At 4:20 this morning, fire brigades from Tyres Hill and Waratah were called to a fire in the administration block of the Hammersley Chemical Company in Sandpiper Street, Kooragang Island. By then, the block was well alight and they were unable to save the single-storey cavity brick building. The blaze was so fierce that it melted aluminium window and door frames and left just a gutted shell. Furniture and documents kept in the building were destroyed. The company manufactures industrial maintenance chemicals on the site, but Hammersley management says the main plant was untouched by the blaze and it will be business as usual tomorrow. Fire brigade officers say the cause of the blaze is not known. The Newcastle Scientific Squad is investigating.
In what must have been one of the luckiest escapes during the wet weekend, no one was injured in this spectacular accident at Merriweather Heights, where a car ended up against the side of a house. Police say the driver of the white Commodore lost control of the vehicle on a right-hand bend, veered up a dirt road divide and swerved down an embankment before slamming into the house. The car crashed through a pergola and came to rest against a bedroom wall, breaking windows and supports. Police say the 2 occupants of the vehicle were able to walk away from the scene. The house was unoccupied at the time. At 1:30 yesterday afternoon, 2 young people also narrowly escaped serious injury. Police say they were travelling west down Hunter Street in a blue Toyota sedan. when they skidded off the road, hit the gutter and flipped onto the boot of a parked car. Police say the accident was apparently caused by the failure of a strut in the Toyota's front wheel assembly. The wet weather washed out parks and playing fields already drenched by Saturday's downpour. While the water did bank up in low-lying areas, the State Emergency Service says on the whole it's draining well. The Bureau of Meteorology predicts more heavy falls today. However, the SES says if this occurs in the catchment areas around Singleton and Dungog, it could mean problems lower down in the valley. The Bureau expects strong winds to accompany the rain, and it has issued a gale warning for coastal waters north of Maruya Heads.
Every year, primary-age students in years 5 and 6 can sit for the region's mathematics competition. This year, more than 9,000 young mathematicians from nearly 200 primary schools took up the challenge. Since its 7-year history, the competition has produced some interesting results, the main one revealing that it's the boys that do far better than the girls. Although director of the maths competition, Fred Bishop, says that the girls fared well in the top 100 placings, this year the 6 major awards went to the boys. Overall winner was Tony Ashcroft from Rathmines Public School. He gained first place in Year 6 and the perpetual Our Town Shield. Year 5 winner was Ian Wright from Bel Air School. All of the winners were presented with savings accounts from Newcastle Permanent. Despite research patterns which show boys continuing to excel ahead of the girls in mathematics and science subjects in secondary schooling, the competition offers the same opportunity for all entrants.
What we're proud to say about this competition is, though, that there are as many girls entering it as boys, and I think this is the important thing, that through this competition we're providing an excellent opportunity for girls to participate. And I think if we can get girls to participate in the mathematics and the allies of mathematics, well then we would hope that that they will perform as well as what boys will in the future.
The drama began at 9:40 this morning when the Swansea Coast Guard received a mayday call from a disabled vessel. The caller, who had an Asian accent, said the vessel was taking in water in rough seas off Catherine Hill Bay. He said the boat was called the Harinda, but it was not clear whether it was a pleasure craft or a fishing trawler. The Coast Guard dispatched the Westpac helicopter and Pol Air. The NBN helicopter also went to the area to assist. They began scouring the rough ocean for any sign of a vessel. It was not long before another vessel with the call sign Foxtrot Tango spoke to the Swansea Coast Guard and said it was in the area. It reported having heard the mayday call and said it could see a floating drum and a life jacket. It then said it managed to pick up the crew of 2. After being told by the vessel that it had not decided where it would come in, the Coast Guard then lost all contact with the vessel. Tonight, police and the Coast Guard are at a loss to know what happened to the mystery vessel. Some people now believe that it may be another one in a series of elaborate hoaxes in the area.
TAFE College fashion students demonstrated the results of more than 8 months' work at the Western Suburbs Leagues Club. 40 students designed, made and modelled their own work. The annual parade featured everything from evening wear to swimsuits and was seen by proud parents, members of the community and fashion industry representatives. Many of the girls on the catwalk hope their efforts will land them a job. More than 700 students are enrolled in fashion classes at Hamilton TAFE, and with effort, their futures can be bright.
The students can go as far as they want. Most of them tend to try and find a job to gain experience and gain money, but they can end up top designers. They've got all of those skills. They know how to pattern make, they know how to machine, they've got talent with their designs, and their aim is just the sky.
Stuart Tipple focused on the Chamberlain case in hindsight last night while giving the 1987 Harry Eddy Memorial Lecture at Newcastle University. He spoke about several issues relating to the case, including police competence, the media's effect on the jury and Australia's legal system.
Under our system we're all supposed to be equal, but because of the cost of litigation and the complexity of it and the length of hearings today, that people do need legal aid, and unfortunately it's not always granted in the best terms, as the Chambers themselves found. And I think that obviously if you don't have adequate funding, you're not going to get the same opportunity that somebody with greater resources has.
So could this result in an unjust conviction?
Oh, I'm sure it could. No doubt of that at all.
He says there is a remedy, but taxpayers won't want to know about it.
I think that everybody should be entitled to adequate legal costs and legal aid. The cost of doing it is probably beyond our present resources.
Ainsworth Distributors, trading as Aristocrat poker machines, wants to reduce its workforce by 8. It has transferred 2 employees and has sacked another 6. A dispute has arisen as 2 of those sacked are out of seniority, and employees say it should be last to come, first to go. Now the Metalworkers Union has stepped in.
Well, we've asked the company to reinstate the 2 employees, to set aside 1 month to see how the workload goes, if there can be sufficient work gained by the company to keep the numbers of employees up. But if that's not possible, then we'd be looking for the seniority principle to prevail.
The union will meet with Ainsworth representatives this morning to get their final reply. If the company doesn't change its mind, industrial action is expected to follow. And how many people would that involve?
There'd be 25 people involved in this dispute.
And they would all be poker machine mechanics?
That's correct.
What sort of effect would that have in the Newcastle area?
Well, it would mean there'd be no repairs for poker machines as they break down.
The New South Wales coal industry is now undergoing major readjustments. The crisis has resulted in the Joint Coal Board predicting the total loss of jobs in both the mining industry and its communities to exceed 10,000. In the Singleton Shire alone, 13 mines, including underground, longwall and open cut, employ more than 5,000 miners. 300 have already been retrenched and more are expected to go. The problems within the industry soon flow over into the communities, and it was evident by the turnout at this year's Coal Discussion Forum that representatives from resident progress groups, coal companies, mining unions and government departments are all concerned about the future. Last month, the Association of Coal-Related Councils, which represents 19 local governments across the state's coalfields, submitted a detailed proposal to set up an assistance program to help the depressed economies of coal-related areas.
Well, it entails a proposition of putting a program together whereby we can try and, with the assistance of the federal and the state government and coordinating with the Association of Coal-Related Councils, a work program to employ people that have become unemployed as a result of the downturn in the coal industry and the domino effect that it's caused.
What role do you see local governments playing in helping to plan the future of the coal industry?
Well, I think the local government has a very important role to play in working very closely with the mining owners, the mining unions and also the people that are unemployed in restructuring, helping to restructure the coal industry so that it can be worked on an economic and a much better feasible economic level than it has been in the last few years.
This is how the historic Federation-style hotel looked before demolition work began. By yesterday afternoon, this was all that remained. The transformation started early on Saturday morning when the licensee and the hotel tenants were told they had 2 hours to leave. Western Suburbs Leagues Club owns the hotel and wants to redevelop the site. There were angry scenes as long-time regulars protested about the pub's demolition. Finally, the police moved in to stop the work and ensure council regulations were not being breached. The council's Director of Health and Building Services, Harold Stuart, inspected the site before handing down a compromise decision.
Well, we're not going to do anything to stop them from doing the internal demolition, provided it's maintained in a safe manner. And on Monday we expect them to come and seek approval for any of the facade demolition, and we'll know more about the National Trust then anyhow.
However, according to the manager of the demolition company, Kevin Kears, some of the exterior had to be sacrificed. Mr Kears said once the interior load-bearing walls were removed, the roof would collapse and so the tiles had to come off. After the doors and windows were removed, leaving gaping holes in the facade, the veranda was considered insecure and so it too had to come down. Only a shell of the hotel, built at the turn of the century, is left, leaving it entirely open to the weather and vandals. This afternoon, the council said the demolition company had not broken any laws, and so long as they maintained safety standards on the site, the council could not stop the work.
Roger Peters could be called the frontman for a group of businessmen who want to see a luxury coach service operating between Newcastle and Sydney. They're prepared to pay almost $1 million for a coach similar to this, fitted with all the modern conveniences, including a telex. But there's a snag. A detailed submission to the State Transport Minister has been firmly rebuffed. However, Roger Peters says the Minister hasn't got it quite right.
Says that the conveyancing of passengers along distance coach journeys within New South Wales, and he is satisfied that the needs of the community are being reasonably met by existing Newcastle-Sydney services. And of course I took him to task immediately on reasonable, and we poor cousins yet again. The second area that he spoke about was that he had spent, or the government had spent, tens of thousands, millions of dollars in fact, on upgrading the railway system, and that people should be encouraged to use it. Well, by using that logic, of course, he spent 10 times that on the motorways, the expressways from Newcastle to Sydney, so presumably people should be encouraged to use our coach.
He says the SRA has had a monopoly on services for years, but ultimately he thinks that will be overcome simply because his coach service doesn't represent competition with the railways.
We are not about breaking the SRA monopoly, we're introducing a new market, a new concept, and totally different from what the rail offers. So in one sense, we're not competing with the railway, but yes, we will get our licence.